A new exhibit showcasing Black history has made its way to Tulsa. New at 10, Fox 23's Naomi Kidd is live with reaction from people who experienced the mobile museum.
I mean, I've seen it in a lot of aspects of my life, but there's something really special about this museum, that it brings out a light in people, and it sparks curiosity, and it unlocks this amazing sense of possibility and the sense of awakening in people to whoever encounters it.
To the question of Khalid as a student, I would say this is a horrible way to, no, let me start this over. I was going to say, no, I'm going to answer this question. It may not be the best way to measure a student, but one of the ways I measure a student is this. If after all these years, I still think about the conversations I had with that student, if I still think about the work they did, the questions they asked, then what that tells me is that student impacted me and quite possibly others. And there's fewer than these students, and Khalid was one of those students. And those conversations and that work, it shows up in the way the museum is organized, but it also made me think about some things. And so, I mean, education at its best is when a teacher is also challenged, is when a classroom is safe but uncomfortable, if that makes sense. And I wanted my classrooms to be like that, and I wanted students to challenge me. And so if I'm writing the story of me as a teacher, I don't see how I could write that without mentioning 3 or 4 students, and Khalid would be one of them.
You know, understanding the importance of energy, like a signed letter from, I think you had something with Martin Luther King's signature on it, right? I mean, seeing that is like, that's amazing, like the energy connected to something like that. If we don't preserve our history, and if we don't understand how relevant we are, is celebrated, then who else is gonna do it? You know what I mean? But it's just great, because what I love about your museum is that it's accessible. Is that you don't have to go to it. It comes to you, and it's something that kids can get close to, young people can get close to, you know. And we need it, grown-ups need it, because we don't know much either about ourselves. But for young people to be able to walk up and say, and be able to see themselves, and here's this story, here's this letter, and see that they're a part of it.
In a textbook, you wouldn't really be able to see that. It will give you a story, but it wouldn't give everything that you would want to know. When you see it more visual, it's like you're getting a better understanding, but it's more in a deeper way. It's like actual evidence.
Like, seeing it from documentaries is a whole different thing from seeing it in person.
This provides a new context for new understanding and new growth on a mutual level for the students and the teacher to experience together.
I think the mobile museum provided me with the opportunity to see Black history not sugar-coated. And another thing that I found interesting is the way that Black youth respond, and white youth alike.
As a teacher at Insorma, the Black History 101 Museum visited Insorma Institute a number of times, but one of the times I was the teacher to bring my students to see the exhibit. And so them on one end having me as their teacher teaching this history, and then coming to see those artifacts and that memorabilia and these historical newspapers and articles and ticket stubs and flyers, made it real to them. And that's what we want to do. Whenever we're trying to teach history, we don't want to teach textbook history where they read it in the textbook and that's it. You want to bring them as close as you can to confront that history. You want them to walk in the places that those people walk, if you can. You want them to see what those people saw. You want them to touch and be able to have as close a view of what happened to our ancestors that they possibly can. It makes it more real to them. History shouldn't be just seen as something abstract and theoretical. It should be seen as something real and that's impactful in the lives of the people who are experiencing it.
Black History 101 mobile museum. Basic Black history, chronological exhibit of artifacts that Khalid el-Hakim has been collecting for now 22 years. And everything from slavery on up to hip-hop and everything in between. Artifacts, documents, letters, Klansman hoods. The whole educational process in going through the exhibit probably would take an entire day if we was to stop and explain every piece. Each piece alone could fill a page in a history book. And this is very, very, very critical. And each piece tells its own story. And as I say in the lecture, our story needs to be told to us, by us.
Yeah, so we brought the Black History Mobile Museum to University of Michigan. I think the first time was in 2008. We put it in a beautiful space in the Michigan Union building, which it really created an opportunity to highlight the museum in a way in which I think that the attendees were able to really see it in its best light. And we brought it year in and year out, and the crowds just kept growing. There was a buzz. Every year people knew that the museum was going to be there on Martin Luther King Day. It was going to be there for our hip hop summit in February, and every single year we had more and more people come to it. And sometimes there'd be distinguished guests like Angela Davis. I think that's one of the more powerful aspects of the museum is that, Khalid is a member of the hip hop generation, and as a result of his understanding of hip hop, I think that's the key, is him understanding hip hop's relationship to an ancestral lineage of African cultural aesthetics and forms of expression. Because he understands that connection, he understands the relationship between hip hop and Black history and culture, and as a result, he's able to create an understanding of that connection for the attendees by having these artifacts side by side and being able to show a direct connection between Black revolutionary movements and nationalist movements, as well as the formation of hip hop. Because we know many people in hip hop culture credit many of the Black nationalists, many of the people who were involved in revolutionary movements in the 60s and 70s in particular, as being forerunners to the formation of hip hop culture in of itself. And through Khalid's artifacts, you really see that. You really see those things come together in a very profound and distinct way that you won't see in any other exhibit.
And in this right here, two brothers in Indiana that were hanged, which was typical of the 20s, 30s, 10s, and before that, at a time when you had the kangaroo law in whatever township it might have been, or whatever they were accused of. You see the faces in here said, no, forget the police, forget the law and the judge. We're taking the law in our own hands and acting upon it. And I think one of the brothers actually was able to get away from this and tell his story, and known for the archive. We put this on the cover of Hazy Shade of Criminal, because the Hazy Shade of Criminal asks, who's the criminal? Which side? They were accused of a crime that they could not prove, but this is a crime in itself. And this was 1930 in Marion, Indiana, which happens to be the home birthplace of the great freestyle artist Supernatural.
I think it's been amazing. I've heard nothing but great things from my faculty, students, and staff. The Professor Griff lecture was amazing. It was great. And just nothing, the students going through the museum, even the faculty and staff, have literally been in awe, right? Because I think we don't always think about these things, and we look at our history, and sometimes it becomes something that we sort of isolate, right, in our memories and our minds, and it's not to physically touch some of the things that we've touched today. It's just mind-blowing, and I think that's not something that's always in our consciousness, right? But forcing us to sort of think about that history, because I think a lot of it can be repetitive and has, and we still see themes of that happening even today. So in an office where we're constantly talking about like bias and microaggressions and racism and dismantling those things, right? You have to have a starting point or even a milestone point to know some of the structures that you're actually dismantling.
But having it mobile makes it more accessible, and by making it more accessible, we're able to connect with people who may not be able to buy a plane ticket and go to a brick and mortar place, wherever it may be geographically located, or maybe less tempted or less inclined to go to a museum or to go experience some kind of exhibit, but to bring it on campuses, to bring it into community centers, to bring it into a variety of settings, conferences and things of that nature, making it more accessible for a variety of people to engage, just provides an experience and provides a level of accessibility that not only is unique but necessary, but also critical if we are to be a people who are serious about changing the world and creating harmonious human relationships.